The question, name just one God-given law. But only a couple of lights on the Phenortner, so I'll give you the phone numbers again. Maybe you didn't hear them the first time around, you know what I mean? 461-9352 in Pinellas, 461-WFLA, 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 990-WFLA. I guess what it really boils down to is, since there aren't any God-given laws, is why keep the book around? And even more importantly than that, why try to put it into a secular situation, like a public school? Joseph in St. Petersburg. Joseph, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hi, it's Bob.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I wax a little philosophical first?
Well, it all depends.
Okay. I have both a science background and a ministerial background. And first, from my understanding from science, that the nature of law itself is the way things function.
No, we're talking about ethics and moralities. I want one God-given ethical or moral law.
A moral law.
Yeah, give me one.
Okay, and I want to express that the principle of moral law is as scientific as the principle of scientific law, but most people aren't aware of it.
I'm not interested in your gobbledygook and tap dancing. I want a God-given moral law, period.
Thou shalt not kill.
What do you mean thou shalt not kill is a God-given law, for God's sake? What kind of an asinine thing is that? Do you mean to tell me that you are so immoral that you'd go out and kill if God didn't tell you not to?
Of course not.
Oh, I see. So thou shalt not kill was a group of people getting together saying, hey, we don't want to be killed. So let's pass a law against killing each other, since we might be the next victim. A God-given law. Give me a break.
I understand what you're saying, but would you give me a chance to express what I want to? I understand that humanity has to come to understand how things work, and then man communicates that to man.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I did in the first 20 minutes of this show. I told you how things work and communicated it to you. I told you why there's unethical behavior and immorality today. It's because people refuse to set a good example and has nothing to do with the Bible whatsoever.
Well, there's a gap between those two statements. I agreed with 95% of what you had to say. But I think if you give me a chance to express another 5%, maybe you'll see what I have to say. Okay?
Well, how often are you going to ask for the chance? Let's get down to business here.
Well, if you give me a chance, I will. Okay. You have to come to understand how the nature of things function, and then you communicate that one to another. But if one posits that there is a powerful being within whom we are created, then the creation, the nature of that creation, is the nature of the law.
Well, no, I'm going to tell you what the law is with your big daddy in the sky. Your big daddy in the sky doesn't keep you on the straight and narrow. What your big daddy in the sky does is relieve you of your guilt, so that when you go out and you rob a bank, you don't have to take the money back. You can just say, hey, God, forgive me. So that when you cheat on your wife, you don't have to wear a hair shirt for 10 years. You just say, hey, God, forgive me.
I understand what you're saying. That is what most religious people have espoused and have put forward and have used their organizations for. That does not have to be the same thing as the truth. Okay, I don't have to hold that position to hold a ministerial position.
Nor do I have to subscribe to a book to know that it's wrong to steal, that it's wrong to lie, that it's wrong to cheat, that it's wrong to kill. They are not God-given laws. They are laws that man got together and created.
You're not quite understanding what I'm saying about what I mean by God-given. You're refuting the human type of conception of God-given law, and that's fine. I agree with that. What I'm saying is there's another view of quotes-unquote God-given law, and that is the nature of creation. If created by a God for a label, then the nature of that creation is the law, just as the law of science is the creation as it functions, and we have come to discover.
Well, again, all of this says utterly nothing unless you want to wrap it up in a nice, neat little ball that says God created us knowing the difference between good and evil. Is that what you're saying?
That's overly simplistic. I wouldn't be so foolish.
Well, let me boil it down a little bit further for you. You, as well as a lot of other religionists, are willing to abdicate
No, sir, I am not.
I wasn't finished. You are willing to abdicate that which is good in you to be able to excuse that which is bad in you. You are willing to say, well, God made me good, so that you can turn to God and say, oh, God, I was bad, forgive me.
You speaking for me, and you're speaking falsely for me. You may be speaking truly for many other ministers, but you're not speaking truly for me. I consider myself quite different from the average conventional minister. So if you want to speak for yourself...
I beg your pardon. Maybe you like to cloak it in different gobbledygook and tap dance round and round and round and round with statements that don't quite say anything, but it still boils down to you won't even accept the goodness within you so that you can get out from underneath the badness within you.
That's not so. Others may hold that position. I do not. I can understand your legitimate criticism of many, but since you don't know my mind, I don't think it's fair for you.
Well, you've already told me that the knowledge between what was right and what was wrong was given in the creation.
It was the nature.
And if it was, then how come you had to come down and write it on some tablets again?
You're misquoting me and misunderstanding me, I think, also. I'm saying the nature of the creation is, in fact, the nature of the law. We come to discover and come to understand how things function and how they function well. And that's correct. I agree with you. I'm just explaining how the two can come together.
Well, I beg your pardon. Natural law can't change.
That's correct. Absolutely correct.
Is it wrong to kill?
It's wrong to murder.
Is it wrong to kill?
With the exception of self-defense, yes.
Is it wrong to steal somebody else's property?
With the exception of survival, yes.
Do the Ten Commandments have prohibitions against killing and stealing?
Yes.
Approximately when were the Ten Commandments handed down?
Oh, maybe 4,000 years ago.
Have you ever read the Old Testament?
Most of it.
You know it comes almost immediately after the handing down of the Ten Commandments with the prohibitions against killing and stealing?
I haven't read it in 20 years, so you can refresh my memory.
Oh, I'd be delighted to. Page after page after page after page after page after page after page of God telling his chosen children to go out and kill other people and steal their goods.
If you want my opinion about the Old Testament, it's a combination of not merely a few issues of spiritual revelation, but it's also a historical statement of what people did.
Exactly. It is precisely that.
Right.
Maybe the actual instances never took place, but that is exactly it. You see, it was man who made up morality, and man who bent it and changed it to fit his own needs, and then had the unmitigated gall to attribute his immorality to God.
Oh, I agree with you. But that does not deny my understanding as well. I agree with what you're saying. I'm also trying to add to it another understanding that you might be able to merge with what you said.
No, I'm trying to get you to live in the real world and not to try to shove religion down people's throats as an easy way out.
Oh, I do not. I work with people. I don't preach to people.
You want the Bible? You want the Bible in the public schools?
Yes, I do.
Then I stand correct in what I just said.
You want
to scare the hell out of people rather than set a good example.
No.
Because there is nothing moral in the Bible. But thank you very much, Joseph. 352 to make it easier for you to make a hate call in Hillsborough. 461-9352 for those of you who would like to make hate calls in Pinellas, because I know you can't answer the question. And the question is just give me one God-given law. Bill in Clearwater. Bill, you're on the air, WFLA.
Bob, how are you?
Fine, thanks.
You got a good one going today, but I think I can answer your question. When you talk about the Ten Commandments in the Old Testament with the rocks and up on the mountain to Moses, a lot of people mistake the Old Testament commandments as redefined in the New Testament. Now, I know you're very good at the Bible, and I'm not as good at, I can't quote you the scripture, the voices, but when the Messiah came to usher in the New Kingdom and to fine-tune the Old Testament, he was asked the very same question you're asking by a group of people in those days known as scribes and Pharisees. And they asked him, which was the greatest of the Ten Commandments that he gave to Moses? And he answered it very simply by saying, and I can't quote word for word, something like, of course, number one, to love the Lord above everything else, etc., etc. But then he added a comma. And the second commandment, he put the 10 into 2. Love the Lord, and the second, love your neighbor as yourself. Now, if you love your neighbor as yourself, you won't steal, you won't kill, you won't commit adultery, etc., etc., etc. Hence, there is the moral law.
Oh, I beg your pardon. That's not a God-given law. Do you want to be killed? Do you want to have do you want to have your goods stolen?
I believe that the man who said it was God.
Do you want to have your goods stolen? Do you want to have do you want to have your neighbor making love with your wife, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera?
Don't be like the Pharisees. He didn't say that. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. That is the second.
These are nothing more than rules of civilized behavior.
But that you said from God, and Christians believe that the man who said that was God. So there's the answer to all your problems. Don't be a scribe or Pharisee.
No, it's not the answer to all of my problems whatsoever.
Wait, that's the answer to your question of the day.
No, it isn't. You have not given me a God-given law.
Love your neighbor.
These, I'm sorry, my friend, were rules of society long before the Bible came around.
But God commanded it when he walked the earth there for 33 years, and then 3 years of his ministry. He commanded it.
Oh, I see. So in other words, people would steal and rob and cheat and lie and kill and be adulterers and so forth and so on.
You don't love your neighbor?
Unless God told them not to.
Of course.
No, not of course, Bill. Not of course at all. Do you like being lied to, Bill?
Lied?
Yeah, do you like being lied to?
I don't believe that was the answer.
Do you like being lied to, Bill?
No, I don't like being lied to.
Have you ever told a lie yourself, Bill?
Yes.
Ah, I see. So we have a prohibition. We have a prohibition against lying, Bill, because we don't like to be lied to.
That wasn't the question you posed. All falls short in these things. But you said a commandment from God for the moral law. And the commandment was the second commandment of God. Love thy neighbor as thyself.
Bill, you seem to be missing a very important point.
You are.
Oh, no, Bill. You are. You see, I can't get you to keep... There's nothing I can do to keep you from lying to me, Bill, unless I can somehow convince you that you're going to have to pay a hell of a price for it in the afterlife.
Bob, the only person who never committed sin was him himself. You know...
I beg your pardon, Bill. Don't you dare suggest that I've committed sin.
Oh, come on. I feel
Don't you dare suggest...
right, and
Don't you dare, you arrogant, hypocritical man, suggest that I have committed sin.
You're committing it right now when you're mocking things like that.
Oh, really, Bill?
Sure.
Oh, I see.
And I'm sure if you...
I see. Using my brain is committing sin, huh, Bill?
If you were around, instead of being a talk show host in those days, you would have been one of them scribes and Pharisees.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and then you would have been able to stone me to death for it, right, Bill?
No, I would have to follow if I was.
Oh, no, Bill, you would have been able to stone me to death for my heresy.
Love thy neighbor.
Yeah, right, and stone me to death for my heresy, right, Bill?
Enemies.
Yeah.
See, you missed that little comma in there, Bob.
No, Bill, you missed about 3,000 years.
I'm not trying to convince you.
No, Bill, you missed 3,000 years of this God-given morality in between the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill.
They didn't follow it.
I beg your pardon, Bill. I beg your pardon, Bill. And God also telling his chosen people to kill people who didn't believe in him.
God told
3,000 years of morality, Bill. You're forgetting this God-given morality.
God chose his chosen people to kill who?
All the other people who weren't his chosen people.
Oh, come on, Bob. You're twisting.
Read the book, Bill.
Oh, come on now.
Read the book.
The New Testament, when the Messiah arrived, defined the Old Testament.
Oh, no, Bill. We've got 3,000 years of people being told by God to go war against this nation, to go war against that nation, to steal this nation's women, to steal that nation's gold and silver, to kill, to kill.
The question you posed this morning. You were reading the newspapers and got upset, and I'm giving you the answer and telling you the reason.
No, you're not giving me the answer, Bill.
People like you don't
Bill, what you're telling me is that these laws have been man-made all along, and when they fit man's purposes, then they were good. When they no longer fit man's purposes, they were no longer good.
That one, if you read it, it's recorded in the red where he said it. And Christians, if you follow it, you don't need all the...
Where he said it.
Where he said it.
Oh, Bill, may I You got the red letter...
According to whether it was Luke or John. Now,
Bill, you've got the red letter Bible there?
The Bible is always in black and red, and when Jesus...
No, it's not always in red. No, Bill, it's not always in black and red. There are red letter Bibles.
Most Bibles will have...
No, Bill, most Bibles don't. Well, no, it's not immaterial, Bill, because if you've got the red letter Bible, may I suggest to you that you go through the 4 Gospels where Jesus is quoted in red letters for the same occurrence, and you'll see different quotes.
Bob, you didn't ask for different interpretations of a Bible. You asked a God-given law.
Whoa, there's no such thing as an interpretation of a quote, Bill.
You were upset losing your You read your newspaper, got upset, now you got the answer and you're fighting it.
Bill, there is no such thing as interpreting a quote. A quote is a quote. That's what makes it a quote.
Answer to your question of the day. Love your neighbor as yourself.
No, Bill. That's common sense.
Okay.
It's not a God-given law, Bill. It's common sense.
Have you become a preacher?
Mm-hmm.
Are you a preacher?
Oh, no, I'm not.
No. But...
No, I'm a human being with some gray matter between my ears.
No, but the thing is, I heard you're an atheist.
Well, you heard wrong, Ann.
Yeah, because...
No, well, Ann, you heard wrong.
Yeah, well, because everybody says to me, listen to Bob on Lassiter, because he's an atheist.
Well, he isn't.
And then when I'm...
Well, he isn't, Ann.
All right, you say you're not, but look at the impression you give to Christians. You can have 100 people on here, not one person you would agree. You knock down everything.
No, Ann, I challenge everything.
That's
what things are there for, Ann, so they can be challenged.
Well, nothing seems to please you, does it?
Are you a Protestant, Ann?
No, I'm not.
Are you a Catholic, Ann?
I believe in God.
Are you a Catholic, Ann?
Oh, what does that have to do?
I'm asking a question. Are you?
No, I'm not.
So then you're a Protestant if you're a Christian.
Well, I'm going to tell you something.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing, Ann, because had there not been a man named Martin Luther to challenge and question the authority and the teachings of the Catholic Church, then your religion wouldn't exist, Ann.
He died as a sinner, didn't he?
He died as a sinner?
He died as a sinner.
Martin Luther died as a sinner? How's that, Ann?
Well, read your scriptures. You said you
read your scriptures. There's nothing... Ann, the Bible was completed hundreds of years prior to Martin Luther. There's nothing in the Bible about Martin Luther, is there, Ann?
Martha
is
Luther,
there, Ann?
Then who made Martha Luther up? Who made him up?
Who made him up? No one made him up. He existed. He was a historical character, Ann.
Yeah. Well, I want to tell you something. You said you talked about if anybody can prove. Now, you seem to like things going your way. Now, if you
I'm just like everybody else,
Ann. They always say, if you want respect, you got to give respect. If you want love, you got to give love. Romans 13, it describes love. Not a love for a child.
Well, what does it say about that love, Ann?
How to get along with people.
Ann, what does it say about that love?
It says, if you have love, you're not a drunkard, you're not a stealer, you're not this, and you're not that, and it goes on and on. Now, if
you mean, for example, Ann, you mean if you were filled with love, then you wouldn't have come on the air making gross accusations that have no foundation in fact whatsoever about my beliefs,
people know that you're an atheist and you don't agree with anything in the Bible unless it's what you believe. Think about it.
And if only there was a mirror that you could hold up to your radio. If only there was a mirror, Ann. 990-9352 in Hillsborough, 461-9352 in Pinellas. Ken in Port Richey. Ken, you're on the air, WFLA. Yes, sir.
I don't think she knew what she was talking about, but that's beside the point. Your question was what God-given law was there?
Yeah.
There isn't any God-given law.
Well, I'm sorry, the Bible says there is.
No, wait a minute. Well, you and I agree too much on this for me to get involved, but what I wanted to say was this. The Bible reminds me of the old FM 22-5 they used to issue in the Army. It's a nice guide, but when you're in the field, you got to use practical common sense. And the Bible's a nice little book to read. It's a good murder mystery. It's got a lot of sex in it, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, but the whole point of this conversation is, yes, there's an awful lot wrong in our society.
True.
But in just putting the Bible back into schools is going to change nothing, and it is an admission that we can give people no reason under the sun to behave morally except the fear of punishment in the afterlife because we refuse to set good examples ourselves.
I agree. And
it's a cop-out.
You know, Bob, I'm a teacher, and I don't want to see the Bible brought back into schools because then we start getting into dogma that has absolutely nothing to do with education. And all of a sudden we become very pedantic about the way we're doing things, and rather than understanding that it's the human being that we're treating, and if we treat the human being as a human being, he's going to have a good soul and whatever. You started the program off by talking about lies. Let's face it, I don't know too many people who have never told a lie.
I don't know anybody that's never told a lie.
And the problem is we quantify lying like we quantify murder. I went over to Korea and Vietnam and killed a whole bunch of people, but because I was a soldier, it wasn't murder. It was considered self-defense or whatever, whether I picked them off from 1,000 yards or what.
Right, even though the fact that you had to go 12,000 miles to get them.
Exactly. And the point is this. That was still taking a human life. It was still murder. Lying is still lying. You know, if we lie to our wife about what bar we were in, because even if we weren't doing anything, we feel guilty, right? So we tell a little lie. What lie hurts people and what lie doesn't hurt people. Anytime you betray another's trust, you have lied to that person. And that, to me, is probably the greatest immorality man can do to his fellow man.
Exactly, but it was men that got together that decided they didn't want to be lied to. So that's why there's a prohibition against telling lies.
And they were lying to each other when they did it. And that's what bothers me. You know, if two men sit down and have a conversation, somewhere along the line, one's ego is going to get involved. And the minute ego gets involved, a man will lie.
Well, you see, what it all boils down to is I guess it's virtually impossible for a parent to sit down with his child and tell the child how bad lying is and then, fudge on his income tax, lie to his boss, take a day off when he really wasn't sick, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So what it is, it's a cop-out. You bring out the book and you say, well, God says it's wrong to lie. It's one of the 10 commandments.
Right.
It's a cop-out.
Or you have the kid answers the phone and it's somebody you don't want to talk to. Tell him I'm not home.
Exactly. Ken?
I know, you got to go for this.
Yeah. Well, thank you much, my friend.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Or one line available. No, it's not. And all putting the Bible back in school is an admission. An absolute, unequivocal admission that the best we can hope to do in teaching our children to be good, moral people is to try to scare the hell out of them. That we cannot teach them by example. That what our children are pretty much a direct reflection of ourselves. The kids want to cheat, hey, we cheat. Kids want to lie, hey, we lie. Kids want something for nothing? Come on. We all want something for nothing, right? So instead of mending our own ways, instead of cleaning up our own acts, we'll blame it on the kids and force the Bible down their throats. Give them some of that good old-time religion. And in the monologue, I mused about, well, geez, in the good old days, it didn't used to be this way. Kind of remember the guy who was quoted in the article about 20 years ago, girls weren't getting pregnant. Well, maybe they weren't in the numbers that they are today. But like I said, times have changed. Kids have cars. Kids have houses all to themselves these days. On and on and on and on. Has nothing whatsoever to do with the Bible. But back in those good old days, remember when gosh, your employer treated you fairly, and the merchant down the street treated you fairly, and everybody went to church, and all it was just great, and there weren't any problems in the world. It had nothing to do with going to church. If the merchant didn't steal or cheat you, if your boss didn't lie to you and harass you, it had nothing to do with religion. Again, it was a different time, a different place. And if we want the world to be a better place, and I think we all do, don't we? Sure we do. Well, then we ought to start making it a better place. And the way to make it a better place is to do unto others. Common sense. Common sense. And common sense does not dictate putting a book full of horror stories in the hands of a child to teach him morality. The best place for a child to learn morality and ethics is at home, watching mom and dad. being ethical, moral people in their dealings with each other, and their dealings with their employer, and their dealings with their government, and their dealings with their neighbors, right on down the line. And to get involved in some type of silly argument or debate over whether or not to put the Bible back into schools is to do nothing more than to postpone doing what has to be done. And so for a little bit of fun, since I know that a fair segment of this audience, a fair good size chunk of this audience, would like to see that old Bible back in school, not because they think it's going to do any good, but, hey, what harm would it do? Well, it's time to stop looking at things that the best that can be said for them is, what harm would it do? It's time to start looking at things where it can be said, what good will it do? And so being a tad more familiar with the Bible than most of the people who prescribe a blind belief in it, I asked a very simple little question. Name just one God-given law that deals with morality. Just one God-given law. And if there aren't any God-given laws that deal with morality, then why kid ourselves and put a book in the schools that is in essence not true? There are 10 commandments, remember? I'm sure you do. 4 of them have nothing whatsoever to do with morality. But the other 6, thou shalt not kill. Shouldn't lie, you shouldn't steal. Shouldn't commit adultery. You shouldn't pine over your neighbor's goods or pine over your neighbor's wife. These are not laws from God. These are the rules of society of any civilized people anywhere. Simply because people don't want to be killed, they don't want to be lied to, they don't want to have their stuff stolen. They don't want somebody else fooling around with their mate. And they don't want someone drooling over what they have. Has nothing to do with a God. It's human nature. It's human nature. There's one line open in Hillsborough, 990-9352. 2 lines open in Pinellas at 461-9352. Lori in Seminole. Hi, Lori. You're on the air, WFLA.
Hello.
Hi.
I can see that you're doing fine. I don't have to ask. The answer to your question, I don't have it. I'm 18 years old. What would you say to me if I told you I don't know what my religion is?
I'd say that, you're probably like most people.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, most people don't believe in God because they want to. They believe in God because they're afraid not to.
Right. Well, I believe there is a God, a spirit, somebody that watches over us, but you're right. You are right. I agree. I've only been listening to you for about 3 or 4 days now because my mom listens to you all the time, but you make a lot of sense, and I think people are afraid to listen to what you're saying because it's really the truth. I think it's funny how people call you up and tell you what you need and what you need to do and how you are and this is what you are and you need to do this.
Well, I also love the people filled with hate who call me up and tell me how I should read passages in the Bible that speaks of love.
Yeah. Well, I've only been to church maybe a couple times in my life, and I'm doing fine. I mean, I wouldn't know if I've never read the Bible. Nope.
Well, virtually everyone, not virtually, literally, every one of the 6 of the 10 commandments that genuinely deal with morality, because the other 4, deal with honor your parents. Yeah, right. Don't curse. Don't have more than one God, and the 4th one would be keep holy the Sabbath, whatever that means. These have nothing whatsoever to do. These, 40% of the 10 commandments have nothing whatsoever to do with a civilized society. The other 6 are known in every civilization. In every civilization, the other 6 are known.
Yeah. Well, I don't believe that Bible should be put back into the schools because it's too hard to understand. It's just, people will start doing things in the Bible. I wish that you could have seen this show on a family where this man and wife literally made their children preach the Bible. I don't know if you heard of them. They were screaming, preaching the Bible. I'm
familiar with the story that you're talking about, yes.
Do you? What do you think about that?
It's a travesty, and it's a prime example of how people go over the edge with this book that is filled with contradictions, this book that is filled with absurdities, this book that is impossible to decipher. Utterly impossible. Biblical scholars get 2 of them together, and they have 2 different interpretations for virtually everything in the book.
I know. I would love to hear a conversation between you and that man. It would be unbelievable. Because he lives strictly by the Bible, and He was just unbelievable.
He can't live strictly by the Bible because the Bible contradicts itself. No, he doesn't. He has chosen areas of the Bible to live by and ignored others. You know, for example, does he get his hair cut? I think he does. Bible says not to.
Huh.
You know, does he live in a house with a pointed roof? The odds are he does. Bible says not to.
Does it?
Yes.
Well.
I mean, all of these things that we subscribe to, these laws from God, supposedly that deal with how to lead a good, decent, moral life, are nothing but common sense. And for every one of those, there are at least a dozen utterly absurd laws given it supposedly at the same time from the same God, such as things like, you know, men shouldn't cut their hair.
Yeah.
Shouldn't shave their faces. You know, these laws were given at the same time, and the punishment for breaking these laws was just as dastardly as the punishment, for example, for murder. It was one and the same. You know, at the same time that God gave out the 10 Commandments, at the same time frame, he also gave out a law that says if two men are fighting together and the wife of one of the men rushes to her husband's aid and inadvertently touches the private parts of the other man, she is to be put to death.
God.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with morality.
You're right. It is common sense.
Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you for giving me a chance, and I will continue to listen to you.
Well, thank you for that.
Okay.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
One line available, Pinellas County, the location, 461-9352. 21 minutes after the hour of 1 o'clock. You know, as I sit here, I might have been wrong, because I don't have my Bible in front of me. I'm going from memory here. I might have been wrong about the punishment for that horrible, you know, touching the other guy's private parts. It might have just been having your hand chopped off. Or again, it might have been, you know, being put to death. I can't remember for sure, but it's one or the other. Ben in Tampa. Ben, you're on the air, WFLA.
How you doing, Bob?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, I'd just like to make a couple points here. To the people that have been calling in and cannot understand where you're coming from, I think that if those people really want to get an idea of where you're coming from, they ought to read some history. There are numerous examples of death, holy war, for instance. I mean, talk about an incongruous, word, a term. Millions of people have died for religion. The Greeks had thousands of plays and dramas destroyed by priests who thought that they were immoral. There are just so many different areas of life that religion has made people create intellectual suicide by going by that.
That's all true, but I'd really like to pretty much keep the focus in the area that I started out with, man. Let me give you an example. One of the earlier callers, the first or second, spoke in terms of, all the great things you'll find in the Bible, like, love your neighbor as you love yourself. That, he, of course, subscribes as a God-given rule or God-given law. Well, I mean, we'd all say, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Right, Ben?
Right.
Do you? Of course not. No way, Jose, nor do I.
Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is indoctrinate younger people with this concept that we cannot live up to ourselves, and then give them a book that we tell them is some kind of a sacred book that also tells them if they don't do that, then they will be punished forever in the lake of fire, which none of us believe, because if we believed it, then we wouldn't live our lives contrary to it.
Right.
It is absurd. It is
guilt.
Crazy.
It is a way of guilt.
It's a cop-out. If you want to teach your children to love his neighbor as he loves himself, then damn it, live that way yourself. Don't give him a silly book.
Exactly. Another point I think that's important to look at is this book was written so long ago, and it was written by men, 12 men. Each had their own view of one story, and I think it's important to look at that and see how a story can be changed around just in a couple of weeks.
It's also important to realize that book is still being written as we speak with various different revisions.
In many versions.
Yeah.
But even the so-called original version was 12 men's different views of the same happening.
Nobody knows that because there are no original versions.
That's true. It's amazing that people can live their entire lives and cut off their knowledge or the fact of trying to gain knowledge.
I mean, I subscribe to everything that is good about the Bible. I firmly believe that you shouldn't cheat. I firmly believe that you shouldn't kill. I firmly believe you should love your neighbor as yourself. I don't do very well myself at these things, although, I've not killed anybody recently. I've never killed anybody to the best of my knowledge, and I firmly subscribe to all of this. I just don't understand why it is that people feel as though their children have to be taught that it's going to displease some great power in the sky, instead of being taught that it's just not right to do these things.
Exactly. It's always the guilt, and it seems that it's just put on by, as you were saying earlier, what was good for men at the time. They wrote their laws so that they could do what they needed to do or wanted to do.
Exactly.
And when it became non-functional, they changed the rules.
Precisely. When they needed to expand their territory, when they needed to increase their wealth, when they needed to bring in more women for whatever purposes, when they needed to do anything, then all of a sudden, ta-da, it was a revelation from God. God told us to do this, even though almost all of it was contrary to the so-called Ten Commandments.
Were you aware that the Catholic Church has now gone back on how they handled Galileo, for preaching a different view of the heavens?
Yeah, I believe it was in the 1960s, possibly 1964.
Was it?
Yeah.
See, I just heard about it about a year ago. And it amazed me.
Yeah, it's been within the last 25 years that they finally said, well, okay, the world is round, and okay, it's not the center of the universe.
Right, it just makes you think how many other things in the future are they going to go back on and say, well, we're sorry that all these generations of people lived their lives by and taught their children by, but we were wrong, we're sorry.
Well, religion has always been the enemy of science. Religion has always been the enemy of education. And it continues to be.
Just the whole thing blows me away.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Take care. One line available. It is in Pinellas County. No, it's not. It's in Hillsborough. 990-9352. 990-WFLA. Richard in Lutz. Richard, you're on the air at WFLA.
Hi, Bob.
Hi there.
Well, I find it interesting that if the Bible is the center of all morality and ethics, why the two most successful TV preachers going were a rapist and a thief and a whoremonger.
Well,
it makes one wonder.
Forget those two turkeys.
Well,
and let's just concentrate on the average Joe and the average Josephine.
Okay.
Because they don't even come close to the teachings of the Bible. And anybody that truly believed in the heavens, the hells, the punishment, the life hereafters, so forth and so on, anybody who really believed in that would follow that book to the letter.
Oh, to the letter and then some. We'd all have beards down to our knees, and like you said, and hair down to our ankles, and the whole 9 yards, and the women would wear veils and walk several paces behind us, which might not be such a bad idea, but that's another story. One of the interesting things is, historically, I guess, we could say if Moses allegedly came down off the mountain about 3,600 years ago, but at the time frame, there's a society where you had said they observe all six, and the one that I find the most interesting are the Pygmies of Central Africa, because when the first white missionaries came in there, the Pygmies laughed them right out. They came in and said, well, this is the creed we live by. And the Pygmies said, hey, man, we've been doing this for about 5,000 years. What are you coming in here and telling us?
For all practical purposes, the only morality that the Christian missionaries have brought to the world is sexual hang-ups.
Oh, exactly.
Oh, God, cover those breasts!
And which actually, because of the sexual hang-ups, has created an immoral situation where we consider sex and sexuality such a filthy, dirty thing that it's used to punish people. So that they've actually created an immorality by trying to be moral.
Exactly. Precisely. And again, you want to sit in your church and study this stuff. That's cool. That's what America's all about. But damn it, leave it out of my schools, please.
Or at least if you're going to do it, teach it in a comparative type of course and not as the only word. And then one other quick thing. For all those people who are calling up and saying, well, y'all should repent and you're going to go to hell and burn in the lake of fire and all this good stuff, they evidently don't remember what was said in the Bible. I don't remember if it was Old or New Testament, that as far as worshiping, you either go for it wholeheartedly or you reject it, and either one, God's going to, from the Bible, is going to accept and forgive you, but the ones that he will damn for eternally are those who are lukewarm about their religion. So, at the strictest Christian sense, Bob, you're in pretty good shape.
Well, also something else that you mentioned just a moment or two ago, I didn't want to interrupt you about, if you're going to teach it, then, actually teach it. Well, the problem is that virtually none of the Bible thumpers, virtually none of the people who want the Bible in school want it taught in any academic sense.
Oh, no.
They want it taught as indoctrination. They don't want it discussed. They don't want to lay open the problems or some of the inconsistencies. They're not interested in any of that. They're not interested in a genuine academic pursuit of the Bible. They're only interested in indoctrination.
And never have been, because if people will go back and look, the only people that could read or write during the Middle Ages and even up into the up into the mid-16 and early 1700s were the clerical types, and there was a definite reason for that. They didn't want anybody to question what they were saying.
Well, the Bible has really, down through the years, only served two purposes. One purpose, as again I mentioned in the old monologue, although I'll elaborate a little bit, one purpose is to keep from having to teach by example. Mm-hmm. Where the clerics, where the wealthy, where the educated back in those days wanted to keep the peasants under control. Hey, God says not to do it. The other only purpose of that Bible is to keep from having to share your wealth.
Yep. And when it's used in that course, it makes it no better a book than Mein Kampf.
Exactly. Hey, don't worry about the fact that I live in a castle and dress in purple. When you die, God will take care of you.
Exactly.
So don't hassle me.
Gold and buildings of emerald.
Yeah, gates of pearl.
A nice little harp and a nifty set of wings to scoot you all over here. And heck, we'll even send you back to Earth now and then to do good deeds. Yeah, why not? Sounds good to me. I think I'll stick around being immoral for a while and die poor and then take my reward in heaven.
Thank you, Richard. Be good. There's one line open. It's in Hillsborough County. The number is 990-9352, 990-WFLA. Jeff and Brandon. Jeff, you're on air, WFLA.
How you doing, Bob?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, to answer your question, the only God-given law that I know of, or that I interpret as a God-given law, was broken by Adam and Eve, and that was not to eat from the tree of knowledge.
Which again, has utterly nothing to do with morality,
right,
assuming, of course, that it's true.
So that's the only God-given law that I can think of, and
since everything else in that first part of the Bible is not true, we can assume that isn't either.
Well, I'm trying to make a point in that, yes, that is not true, and that it has nothing to do with morality, and these Bible thumpers who say that, that God dictates morality is untrue. Society dictates morality.
Always has, always will, and it constantly changes as society changes.
That's true, because morality in the United States has changed in the past 200 years.
But it's a constantly evolving process. 200 years from today, we won't recognize. You and I will be appalled by what people do, because it'll be to one extreme or another from where we currently are today.
That's true.
It'll either be a hell of a lot more restrictive or a hell of a lot wilder. It's most unlikely that it will be the same as it is today.
That's true. Now, the issue of putting the Bible back in school, I really don't know. I'm 21 years old. I was never involved with a school that had, Bible teaching or had the Bible, taught in the school. So I really don't know what kind of effect it would have had on me. All I know is that I'm 21 years old. I've never killed anybody. I've never, stole anything. I've never, I don't...
come on now, Jeff. Don't you mean you've never really stolen anything of real value?
Okay.
Like for example, are you at work now?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of people who call in the daytime are at work, and they're literally stealing from their employers to call me.
I do the clock for maybe 5 minutes, to get a full 8-hour day. I'll admit that.
We all do, Jeff. It has become part of our morality. Well, it's okay for little thefts. It's okay for little lies.
It depends on what it is, I guess. It's kind of secular in a way.
And then we want to send our kids to school where they read from a book that all lies, all cheating, all stealing is wrong. Well, it is wrong, except that none of us practice it.
Well, see, like I said, I really don't know from experience, because I can't tell the difference. All I know is how I turned out. And I think I'm a, moral person. I think killing is wrong. I think cheating is wrong. What can you do? Except, try and intellectually and, sensibly think out problems.
I know the people that have had the greatest and most profound effect upon my life and in teaching me right from wrong were the people who practiced good morality, good ethics, because they shamed me. The people who sat there and lectured to me and were hypocrites just, made me go away laughing and slapping my thighs. But the people who taught me by example shamed me and encouraged me into trying to walk the straight and narrow. That seems to me to be the way to do it.
I agree, because one of my best influence in life was Henry David Thoreau. And he was, he lived, and he lived by himself to try to experience what God had to say to him, and not, what was through the book.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Okay, you have a good day.
You too. One line available, Hillsborough County, the location 990-9352. Ed in Clearwater. Ed, you're on the air, WFLA. Ed couldn't hold on. Pity poo. Well, there's another line available in Pinellas at 461-9352, 461-WFLA. Herbie in Tampa. Herbie, you're on the air, WFLA.
How you doing, Bob?
Fine, thanks.
All right. I agree with you about the religion in the school and the Bible in the school. The scary part about that is that you're going to get the interpretation of whoever's teaching that class, which I was brought up from first grade on in Catholic school, and I got the religion, the teaching of God that they taught me was a very vengeful and condemning God.
Oh, exactly.
Which brought me up. Shit, I got all screwed up. I can remember 3rd and 4th grade not being able to go to sleep till I had my mother would call the priest up and tell me, yes, Herbie, if you die tonight, you will not go to heaven. I mean, hell, I promise you, And and that's the way I interpreted it. That's the way my teachers, because a lot of other kids in my school, they got a different point.
Did your mom and dad go to Mass every Sunday? Every Sunday.
Yeah, my mom did. They put the little,
But your father didn't.
And put the money inside the collection and all that.
But your father didn't go to Mass every Sunday.
Well, they were divorced. I didn't grow up with my dad, but that's a different story. But, so I agree with you on that. On the God-given, what was it, the original question?
Just one God-given law. Just one.
I just got a question for you. Don't you think that they're all God-given laws, and that's what separates us from, just say, like the animals?
No, I don't. Animals don't tend to kill each other.
Well, they do it like for the survival.
Not of the same species, unless, again, it's for survival.
Mm-hmm.
Most animals do not kill each other.
You were talking about guilt earlier, and I feel the only purpose that guilt does have is not to do things again. I mean, the guilt has a purpose that that if you do these same things again, you're going to feel like shit again.
You're gone, my friend. Within reason, 3 times in one conversation. Thanks a lot, but Jenny in St. Petersburg. Jenny, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hi. I hope nobody ever attempts to teach my children anything moralistic from the Bible in school. I've been very fortunate in that my children have gotten into one of the Southside Fundamental Schools.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've heard of them or not.
No, I haven't.
Okay, they're public schools, but you have to apply to get into them. What the computer does, it randomly kicks out according to, what they have, their certain quotas of different ethnic or racial groups.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a real long waiting list. But the schools are so successful. The teachers stay, the kids stay, the parents have to go to mandatory PTA meetings. If you miss more than 2, you're out. Kids have mandatory homework every day. And they work. Everybody cooperates. The children have to say yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. There's no religion taught in the school at all. Of course, it's a public school. But they're functioning schools, and the kids all, they get great grades. They score high in the achievement test, and there's a waiting list a mile long to get in. I don't understand why there aren't more of them.
Well, unfortunately, Jenny, there's a simple, easy answer, because there aren't more Jennies. There aren't more parents who will do what they have to do. There aren't more parents who will put the time and effort and energy into their children's education. That's why there aren't more of them.
Well, there's a waiting list. There's a demand for it. It's, you know.
Well, a waiting list, yes, but not a waiting list long enough to warrant having more of them.
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know. It amazes me that here you have something that works so well, and it's basically the same sort of school that we had years ago, you know, where they required respect and cooperation between parents and teachers, you know.
Well, the reason it's the same kind of school that you had years ago is because you're living the same kind of life that most people lived years ago. Unfortunately, most people today don't live that life. Well, you are genuinely interested. Most people aren't. They say they are, but they aren't. And they prove it to us every day with their actions. When they don't show up for the PTA meeting. When they do, side with a kid no matter what, against the authority figure. They prove to us every day. Mm-hmm. But back in the world that you and I grew up in, and I'm going to assume, I'm 42 years old, but I will assume that you and I grew up in pretty much the same world. They were smaller towns or neighborhoods in larger cities.
Right.
People had a responsibility to each other. Right. They weren't good because God was going to send them into the lake of fire. They were good because they couldn't get away from their neighbors.
Right. It's just we had respect. We had respect for other adults in the community.
And fear for what other people would think of us. Because we couldn't get away from them.
Yeah, I suppose. I just think it's a shame that everybody's out there crying the blues about how bad the school systems are, whereas I said, here's something that's public school. It's free. You know, you have to drive your children to and from, which is a little bit of an inconvenience, but definitely well worth the trade.
Hey, it sounds, to me like it'd be a bargain at twice the price.
Really? Well, I paid, $3,500 a year for my kids to go to private school before they got in there, so it's really quite cheap now. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in.
Well, thank you, Jenny.
Well, you're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Be good.
Bye-bye.
One line available in Pinellas at 461-9352. Two lines open right now in Hillsborough at 990-9352. Still have two lines open both in Hillsborough at 990-9352. Greg in St. Petersburg. Greg, you're on the air, WFLA.
Bob.
Hi, Greg.
Looks like you're having another one of your hatred toward God shows.
No, I have no hatred toward God at all.
Getting all your atheist buddies to call. It's always funny how
I don't ever get buddies to call.
So I
don't have any buddies, Greg.
Just wanted to set you straight on a few things.
Oh, really?
What harm can come out of teaching the Bible in classrooms? I don't know any
Great deal
Christians
of harm.
that go to school with guns. I don't know any good Christians that go to their school and steal things from other people.
Don't.
So you tell me what harm can come out of the Bible.
Well, Greg, it's really quite the other way around. How many people in this country, percentage-wise, profess a belief in God?
I'd guess about 90%.
Well, it's about 95, Greg. What percentage of the prison population are atheists?
Are atheists? I don't know that.
Virtually none. Virtually none, Greg. Virtually none.
Are you saying they're all born-again Christians in there? That's irrelevant to what harm could come out of teaching the Bible in a classroom.
Great deal of harm comes out of the Bible, Greg.
Well, what kind
of harm? A great deal of potential harm comes out of the Bible.
What kind of harm?
The Bible's views on women.
If they were taught don't steal.
The Bible's views on women, for example. The Bible's views on people of color, for example. That's what kind of harm comes out. The Bible's views against science and learning. That's what kind of harm comes out of the Bible, Greg.
So you say
you don't need the Bible, Greg, to tell somebody it's wrong to murder, do you?
Well, it doesn't seem like
you don't need the Bible to tell somebody it's wrong to lie, do you, Greg?
Maybe if a little bit of fear came out of them, like if they did something wrong, there might be some punishment at the end of the line. Maybe that would help control. I mean, just saying to somebody that's wrong to do that.
Greg,
slap your hand if you do. How's that gonna?
Greg, do you believe in the Bible, Greg? Do you believe in the Bible?
Yeah, I do.
Well, it hasn't done you a damn bit of good. You came on the show telling lies.
Atheist pig. You dirty atheist, hiding behind your agnostic crap. Nothing but an atheist pig who just likes to spread your hatred toward God there. And you get all your buddies. I don't hear people trying to defend the Bible because you always hang up on them and slam the receiver on them. All you get is your atheist buddies trying to spread your hatred and your vengeance towards your God. And you still can't say anything about what harm actually came out of the Bible, can you?
Greg, I don't have to. You just did for me. 1:46 the time. One line available in Pinellas. 461-9352. One line available in Hillsborough, 990-9352. Bob in Tampa. Bob, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hello, Bob.
Hi there.
First-time caller.
Great.
I have to agree with a lot that you say, and I believe that there are certain passages in the Bible, and I'm not a Bible scholar by any means, although I am a former educator. If you check Titus 1:10 through Titus 1:16, that will answer a lot of the questions for the people that are, disagreeing with you and don't understand where you're coming from. Also, there is another scripture which is...
Well, for the benefit of us who don't have a Bible handy, could you kind of, capsulize it for us?
I don't like reading the Bible over there, and I'm sure...
No, I don't want you to read the Bible over there in your own words.
I don't have it with me, to tell you the truth. You understand there's certain types of insects that destroy the home that they live in, which they're called termites. And you can rest assured that when these people realize that you are a termite and a circuit-riding Marxist, that everything will be clear to them.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, son?
Oh, I feel you're another great Christian.
By the way...
Just coming on the air and telling lies. Just coming on the air and trying to destroy someone who disagrees with you. That's what your Bible taught you, isn't it? What your Bible taught you, isn't it?
I don't have
What your Bible taught. Oh, really?
I don't even own one.
Really? Never owned one?
I know you're a circuit-riding Marxist. You go from one place to another, spreading your venom and poison. All Marxists hate the Bible, and you're a Bible hater.
Yeah.
You're a person of a questionable birth also.
Oh, really? How's that, Bob?
You don't know where you came from.
Oh, I
know
don't?
where you're going. Goodbye.
Yeah, goodbye to you too, fella. Hey, God loves you too. You know what I mean? Lil in Clearwater. Lil, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hello.
Hi.
This is Lil. Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just want to say that my mother taught me by example. My father taught me by fear of man. And I grew up really puzzled because we went to church, and my father took us to church, but he did not go to church. He visited friends while we were at church.
Because obviously he didn't believe.
That's right.
He just wanted you to.
Yes, and we all...
Right, so that he could live his life the way he wanted to, but yet allow somebody else's fear and guilt
he believed in
to make you live your life the way he wanted you to live it.
And he believed in just beating the hell out of us. And that's what he did to us. He had 9 kids, and that's what he did, and my mother raised us by example. And we have a terrible, terrible attitude toward life today, all 9 of us. And it's kind of frustrating.
Of course it's frustrating, Lil.
And frightening. Really
it's frightening too.
God comes into our lives very much. And it's kind of scary too. We go to church, but I know that church doesn't do it.
No, it doesn't. Obviously.
Okay, well, I'm just telling you, I agree with a lot you're saying, but I also have my own ideas that I'm going to have to stick to.
Well, Lil, I've got no problem with that. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I want you to stick to your ideas. I genuinely and truly do.
Let me tell you something. I'm 72 years old, and I just love you dearly. At first, I thought you were the worst person, and I just think you're perhaps the best person in the whole Tampa Bay area.
You're
and I've been down here for 11 years. I grew up in Florida, left Florida during World War II, came back 11 years ago, and I just think you're dear, and I listen to you every day.
Thank you, Lil. 1:50 the time. Don Richards standing by in the WFLA news booth. Donald, 2 lines open, 1 in each county. Kim and Mango. Kim, hi, you're on the air, WFLA.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Bob. This is Kim. I wanted to call and let you know that I don't believe that it should be taught in the school, the Bible.
Why?
Well, for a couple of different reasons. Number one, the Bible isn't something to be taught in the school. Not because of the differences or what has happened, or like you say there are conflicts. I agree there are different conflicts in the Bible. But more importantly, each person that reads the Bible sees and interprets things differently. The Bible itself, I believe, is like my grandfather said, is a guideline. It gives you guidelines to live by.
Well, there are a number of books that do the same thing.
Well, there are, but with all those different books, any book that's wrote, okay, who gets the most recognition for it is the book that brings it out first, right?
Well, I'm hard-pressed to tell you the truth, Kim, to think of anything in the Bible in the way of moral teachings that is not common sense. You know, it is wrong to lust after someone else's wife, right? Or husband, as the case may be.
I'm not arguing that point.
And I can give you real good reasons for why it's wrong, aside from burning in the lake of fire.
Right.
You know, it's wrong to steal somebody else's property. Again, I can give you lots of good reasons aside from burning in the lake of fire. Well, the Bible doesn't tell you why it's wrong to lust after someone else's wife. It just tells you not to do it or you'll burn in the lake of fire.
I disagree there because there's chapters that go through it in the Old Testament that explain why you shouldn't do that. As a matter of fact, when
because it's somebody else's property.
Pardon?
Because it's someone else's property.
Not so much that it's somebody else's property, but because that is a person which is married to someone else. For each law that was given of the Ten Commandments, the Ten Commandments, when the New Testament came out, except for the few that Jesus brought up, were put to rest because God... I get into a lot of Christians because I believe there's a separation between the two.
Kim, which one of the Ten Commandments was put to rest in the New Testament?
There were a couple of them put to rest. And right now I can't... my mind's getting confused. Just a minute.
No, I think you're talking about the old Mosaic law.
Mosaic
such things as, not trimming your beard in angles and that kind of stuff.
Right. I'm sorry. I got them mixed up. There were different things that were put to rest when Jesus came. In the coming of Jesus...
I beg your pardon. He said, I came here not to change the law, but to fulfill it.
To fulfill the law. And he also tells you that he didn't come to create peace, came to create war, which in the war was the war of the differences between the religious person and a person who was not. He said, Jesus states out, I didn't come to make peace between a mother and a daughter, but for the mother and daughter that disagreed, I have come to create war for them. He says a lot of things. But what I'm saying is that the Bible doesn't belong to be taught in the school. And I agree with you there. I don't think it belongs in the school because, number one, there's a lot of things about the Bible people don't even know. Not because of our fault, but because of people as they changed through the centuries. Different things were lost. There's books that they know that are lost in the Bible, that they don't know what happened to them. Some were literally destroyed.
Yeah, they were thrown out.
That's right, because they said, oh, no, people can't know about this. What they were, we don't know. And there are things in there like, okay, the Song
Well, actually,
of Solomon.
we do know, Kim, what in essence they were. What they were is that they were in disagreement with the theological ideas of the gentleman who sat down, almost 1,800 years ago now to put together what we refer to as the Bible. We know in essence what they were, things that they disagreed with, period.
Well, but we don't know what they were that they disagreed about. What they were looking at is in their time, they disagreed with it.
Rabbi Bresky, you're on the air, WFLA.
Bob?
Yes, John.
Very disturbing show, Bob.
Why is that, John?
Disturbing show because many reasons. I think the most disturbing thing I heard is what you did to that poor 18-year-old girl. You taught her not to believe, Bob. I think you should feel very good about yourself.
Oh, how's that?
You taught somebody not to believe this day. You should feel very proud.
I didn't teach anybody. I don't teach anybody anything, Jan. I asked people to think for themselves and come to their own conclusions.
You want something from God in the Bible?
Yeah, that would be fine.
Leviticus chapter 19. You shall be holy, for I, the Lord your God, am holy.
What does that mean, Jan? If you want to teach that in temple, if you want to teach that in temple, if you want to teach that at home, that's fine. But keep it out of my schools, please.
Bob, I didn't say anything about a school. You brought up a school. You asked a question, and then when someone gives you a good answer, of course, you have nothing to say.
That's a good answer? That's a law from God?
Deuteronomy 30. I just have one or two more. Deuteronomy 30, verse 19. Choose life if you and your offspring would live. That's from God.
Well, what does that mean?
That means you don't smoke, Bob, because if you smoke, you die. And people choose to die, Bob. They choose not
Well,
to
if you eat red meat, if you eat red meat, you're going to have, higher cholesterol. If you do this,
right.
you do that, everything is going to kill you eventually.
You don't prove that people choose to die, right?
No, people don't choose. No, people don't choose to die, Jan. People believe themselves to be immortal. And that's one of the things that the Bible helps. That's one of the fallacies that the Bible helps to perpetuate.
What's that?
Hey, don't worry about this life because the next one's so much better.
The Bible, in fact, Bob, the Jewish Bible has nothing to say about an afterlife. You should know that, being the great Bible scholar that people pretend that you are. Let's try Micah 6,
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon,
yes?
Jan. Perhaps the Jewish Bible does not promise everyone an afterlife, but there are many occurrences in the Jewish Bible of people being taken back to heaven with God, are there not?
None.
None?
None. There is no heaven or hell in the entire Jewish Bible. It's not mentioned.
Well, taken home with God.
No. Sorry, Bob. Nice try. Micah 6, the last one. He has told you, O man, that is God has told you, what is good and what the Lord requires of you. Only to do justice, to love goodness, and to walk humbly with your God. That's from God.
And what does that say?
Justice, goodness, and to walk humbly, not alone, but with Him.
I beg your pardon. That's common sense. The justice and goodness and humbleness.
And walking with God.
Yeah. Well, I've never seen anybody walk with God. Have you, Rabbi?
The other two you can't do without
I've never
God,
seen anybody walk with God. Have you, Rabbi?
Yes, I've seen a lot of people walk with God. Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad, Moses. I try it. I don't think I do it too well.
Funny, I thought you were in your early 30s.
Yeah, well, I try to walk with God, and there are a lot of people who call your show who try to walk with God, but they get yelled at. You know, Bob, I really think that the other side of the story should be told, don't you?
What's the other side of the story?
The people who love God, don't you think that maybe it's time for our fourth public debate? Are you willing to do that?
Well, tell me what you mean about the other side of the story.
I mean, people who believe in God, people who get faith and hope and courage and strength from knowing God. Don't you think those people should have a chance?
I've never met anybody yet. I've met people that have found it within themselves and don't have the courage to claim it for themselves, but I have to give the credit to someone else.
You mean people who have their lives straightened out and God has nothing to do with it?
I've never encountered anyone that's had their life straightened out by God.
Well, you're talking
not
to
a
one.
soul.
You're talking to one.
No, I beg your pardon. You can't prove that to me. You can tell me that you think that's the case. You can tell me that you think that's the case.
Well, I think that's the case.
You know, I recall once a little example that you gave me during one of your programs over on the other station, something to the effect of, well, gee, if you've got a problem, pray every day for 6 months and see if it doesn't go away. And I told you, well, yeah, set a teddy bear up in your rocking chair in your bedroom and talk to it every day for 6 months, and you'll come to a solution to the problem.
So then God has never given anyone insight. Now, God has never revealed any knowledge to humankind.
Why are you so cruel to people as to want to strip them of the ability of their right to claim solving their own problems?
No, Bob, that's what you're doing.
I beg your pardon. You're the one,
sir. You are undermining their right to find wisdom from their Creator. If people don't want to believe in God and don't want to worship God and don't want to derive things from God, then we have free will not to do that. We have free will to be stupid. And that's why God says choose life and don't be stupid.
No, it's man that gives you the free will and the right to be stupid.
No, man doesn't give you any rights. The people I know are people who like to take rights away and then blame God for taking them away, like talk show hosts.
Man doesn't give you any rights, only God gives you rights, huh? How about the billions and billions of people on the face of this earth as we speak who are suffering miserably? Don't they love God as much as people in this country?
Yes, and I think God loves them too.
Oh, he loves them too, but he just kind of likes, to let them starve every now and then or rot in their own filth or whatever it might be.
Not because of God. People are starving, never mind on ends of the earth. People are starving in Tampa because people right here in Tampa don't care. Don't lay that one on God. We have free will to help those people.
Oh, I beg
we want to
your
build
pardon.
a $30 million stadium and stuff some homeless people in it once in a while.
I beg your pardon. Wouldn't you give God credit for, good crops and rain at just the right time and so forth and so on?
My God isn't a farmer, Bob.
Oh, your God didn't make this earth?
My God.
Your God didn't make this earth?
Is my God the creator of the earth? Yes. And the creator
So therefore it was your God that put the minerals, for example, under the soil so that they could be extracted and wealth could be gotten from them. It was your God that put the oil underneath the ground so it could be extracted and so forth and so on.
God has given us every raw
But it was your God who didn't.
Can I answer the question?
It was your God who did not put the minerals under the earth in, for example, Ethiopia. It was your God who did not give just the right mix of sun and rain.
Excuse me, but it was not God, but people who could send enough food for Ethiopia, enough food for Tampa, enough food for the people in Washington, D.C. who are sleeping on the street. It is people that refuse to share with other people the wealth and the bounty that God has given to all of us.
That he just happened to place under the soil in some places and not under the soil in others.
And therefore we have to share, because the things that they have we don't have, and the things we have they don't have.
Well, gee, isn't it amazing? Isn't it amazing?
God commands us to share.
Is it not amazing that 5,000 years ago, and according to the Bible all of this was put together, that God didn't bother to come up with a way to transport the needs that were given in some areas of the world to areas of the world where those needs were not fulfilled?
I'm not sure that's true.
Well, I am.
I'm not sure that's true. I'm not sure that the sharing couldn't have taken place back then and be at a greater point today. But we are people who choose death and choose not to help one another. Don't lay that on God. I mean, let's be fair about it. You want to be fair about it?
I beg your pardon. I've never laid that on God.
God will give you
I've never laid that on God. I've never laid that on God, have I, Jan?
You just did.
I beg your pardon, sir. No, sir, I was taking your beliefs and throwing them back in your face and asking you to explain them.
I am.
No, you're not.
Yes,
you're attempting to, but you're doing very poorly at it, Jan. I mean, you're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Well, I'm not so sure that 5,000 years ago they didn't have a way.
Yeah, they did have a way to share their wealth with each other. Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
Really?
There was plenty of commerce between places like Palestine and India 5,000 years ago that we don't read about today. And they could have shared the wealth back then, too, but they chose not to. But that's getting away from the point. The point is, Bob, that for a lot of people, God is real. And people have an experience of God. And they know God. And you do a show like this, and you try to undermine it. And the people that you reach are the weak people. The people that poor little 18-year-old girl who wasn't sure whether she should believe in God or read the Bible, but you convinced her, Bob. You convinced her to live a life without God and without the Bible. I wouldn't want to be responsible.
Funny, I thought I convinced her to lead a moral, ethical life.
How?
Isn't that far more important? Isn't that far, far, far more important than leading a life with a Bible tucked under your belt?
I don't think there is morality without God. I think that's the reality of the situation. There is no morality without God. There have been many systems of morality and ethics that have tried to work without God, and every one of them has failed. What does that tell you?
What system has succeeded?
The only system that has ever succeeded in helping people to live a better life is a system whose authority and whose center is God.
Could you name one of those?
Well, I think that most religions have an ethical system with an ultimate at the center. That ultimate being God.
Oh, for example, Judaism, where there are, branches thereof that would like to destroy non-Jews?
Yes, I think that people make some very bad decisions.
Oh.
Yes, I do. But I think at the center of every morality is the acknowledgement that, no, we're not the boss of the world. There is a boss. And no, we don't have.
But why doesn't the boss take over, Rabbi? Then why doesn't the boss take over?
He would, but you won't let him, Bob.
Oh, come on, Rabbi! Do not attempt in any shape, manner, or form to blame the problems of the world on me when most of those problems can be traced back to religion.
We have free will to choose, Bob, and that lady's right. You could be a great voice for ethics and morality if you knew who the boss was.
I'm the boss, sir. I am the boss for my own ethics and morality, just as you're the boss for yours.
Wow,
the difference between us is I accept responsibility.
Oh, I finally met God. You have all the answers, and you can make all the choices, and you can make all the responsibilities.
Do not attempt to put words. Do not attempt to put words into my mouth. Do not attempt to put words into my mouth.
You just said that you make all the choices for yourself.
Exactly, and I didn't say I was God, did I?
Well, only God makes all the right choices for himself.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, now you've met a second guy that does.
You want to do this publicly? I don't want to do this over the phone. You want to have me on? Because I think it's time. It's time people heard the other side.
People always hear the other side.
Oh, no, they hear these preachers on TV who are after a buck, but they don't hear the other side.
Oh, I beg your pardon. They're not men of God?
I don't think I've heard too many who are.
Oh. So I see. You can't decide on your own whether or not to murder somebody. You need God to tell you that's right or wrong, but you can sit there and determine whose faith is real and whose faith isn't.
Well, I think it's
that's a remarkable ability you have, Rabbi.
Evident whose faith is real and whose isn't. When you watch these men, you hear of their past, and you hear what they do. Isn't it self-evident?
Isn't it self-evident?
Yes, by their actions, by the way they live.
What's that mean?
That means if a man does.
Doesn't God want you to live well?
Yes.
Oh, well, then I guess Pat Robertson and Jimmy Baker.
If you're in his service, no.
Oh.
No, I don't.
Well, it's funny. That's funny. That's not exactly what the Bible said he had in mind.
Why? Where does it say something different?
Oh, let me refer you back again to your book, to your Jewish Bible, with how the tribe that became the rabbis were to be given 10% and all the meat from the offering. I beg your pardon.
Excuse me, you have to show me where it says something where a tribe gets 10%.
Yes, exactly. The 12 tribes of Israel, you recall them, right?
Yes.
Well, 11 of those tribes were given the land, and the other tribe, the 12th tribe, they were to become the priests, and they were to be supported because, poor guys didn't get a cut of the land. So they were to get 10%.
You mean the men who work in the service of the temple should not have been paid? They should have sat in the service of the temple till they starved to death.
Well, isn't it amazing that they were the ones that determined what they were to be paid?
No, it doesn't say they should be paid 10%.
And they got 1/10. The other people only got 1/11.
It doesn't say they should be given 10%. It does not say that.
Funny, it does in my copy.
Well, why don't you give me the quote?
I don't have my Bible in front of me, Jan.
Okay. Well, when you can show it to me in black and white.
I can also tell you that they were given the good meat, from the sacrifices.
That's right. What do you want? Rancid
plus
meat?
the 10%.
No, they should eat rancid meat and die.
Oh, no, I beg your pardon. I didn't say good meat. I said the good meat, the best. You were to bring your best calf to sacrifice to God, but unfortunately it was a rabbi that got to keep it.
You should bring the best that you can afford, it says. The best you can afford.
Yes, in other words, the absolute best that you have. Do not bring a blemished ram, as an example.
That's correct. Don't bring something that embarrasses you and who you are to bring to God. That is correct.
That the rabbi gets to keep.
I think that's a darn good approach, don't you?
Well, if I was a rabbi, I guess I would.
Oh, well, well, you know how much money I'm making.
Since there was utterly no instance in recorded history of a lamb or a ram or a dove or a calf being miraculously lifted up from the altar and taken up into heaven. Basically, after the service, the ram is taken back to the rabbi's house.
No, the ram was taken to the priest so he could live, so he could eat.
Funny, couldn't he live on his 10% cut?
No, that lamb was part of what the priesthood lived on. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that?
It's like a perfect blending of a spiritual and an economic system.
Well, it seems to me that, if God took that much time and trouble to set up exactly how his priests were going to survive economically, it's kind of amazing to me that he didn't have just as much of an interest in the other 11 tribes.
Well, he did. And he has an interest in you and me, and that's really the point. He does have an ongoing interest in all of us. I don't care how angry you may be, he has an ongoing interest in you, too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
How about the ongoing interest he had in your kind that were shoved into the ovens by Hitler?
Well,
that was quite an ongoing interest, wasn't it?
In the words of Elie Wiesel, it was not God who shoved them in the ovens. It was people who shoved them in the ovens.
Who made the people, Rabbi?
God made the people, but he gave them free choice.
Gave them free choice.
Free will, yes.
Free will.
Yes. We have free will, Bob.
And yet you would have me believe that God would intervene in my life in the smallest little detail, but turned his back on 12 million of his chosen people. Rabbi, it doesn't add up.
I think it does, Bob. And I think for people of faith, like Elie Wiesel, who went through the Holocaust and still believes, it still adds up.
Well, the fact of the matter is it doesn't.
Well, I think you're wrong, and I think you should stop cutting off people who think you're wrong. I think you ought to listen to them.
I don't quite understand where it says in the good book that you can tell me how to conduct my program.
Nah, you taught me how to do mine, so I shouldn't criticize the master anyhow. Not in that aspect anyhow. You do a good program, but you should be a voice getting people back to God, not driving them away.
I should be a voice getting people back to God. In other words, what, aren't you doing well enough? You need my help?
No, I'm not doing that great. And you would be a tremendous source for people.
Bob,
I've told you this before. People listen to you. People want to be guided by you. I hear the lost souls calling you all the time looking for something. Now you have to feed them, and what you're feeding them is junk food.
Feed them?
Yes. Stop feeding them junk food. Stop feeding them
I don't feed people junk food, Rabbi. I'm not a member of the clergy. I ask people to think for themselves and to arrive at whatever conclusion they want to arrive at. I ask but one thing of those people after they arrive at their own conclusion. Do not attempt in any shape, manner, or form to shove it down my throat. That's all I've ever asked. That's all I ever will ask.
And you know that I ask people to find God in their own way, not my way, Bob. And there are certain people that ask other people to find God in their own way, not to be Jewish or Catholic or Protestant, but to do it in their own way, whichever way they choose. And the reason that we do that is because there is a God to find, and that God has helped a lot of people, me included. I should say especially me. And I think it's wrong to drive people away from that God, especially people like.
Don't you think it's wrong to drive people to a religion that would drive people away from another religion?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Don't you think it is wrong to drive people to a religion that would have those people drive other people away from their religion? For example,
yes, I think it would be wrong to drive people into an intolerant religion.
For example, like Christianity.
I'm sorry.
For example, like Christianity.
Well, I've never driven. There are liberal branches of Christianity that don't say that everyone's going to hell who doesn't believe the way that they do. There are such branches.
So people should stay away from the other branches.
People should do what they think is best, but I don't.
Except for me.
I don't myself.
I'm not allowed to do what I think is best because it doesn't agree with you.
Try to get people into intolerant religions. I think people should join tolerant religions that don't have just one way to heaven, but tell people to find their own way.
Except for me. I'm not allowed to arrive at my own conclusions.
Come on, who's stopping you? It's your show.
Well, you're attempting to.
No.
You're telling me that I should use my show to bring people to God, not from them.
No, I feel is true. I'm voicing my opinion.
So, like I said,
stop you. I've never started a protest group. I've never called the station, told them to take off Bob Lassiter. But I am offering my opinion, which is you could be a great voice to drive people to God and morality, but you're not using it.
Well, I beg your pardon. I don't really talk about God. I talk about religion.
Well,
I don't know whether or not there is a God. However, I feel reasonably certain that if there is, he is none of the things that people ascribe to him.
You and I agree 100% on that. We are both kind of down on what we call organized religion. But we're not down on God, and most people, Bob, don't understand that about you. That in your heart there is a doubting possibility that there is such a thing as a loving God. I know that about you. But people don't see that side of you. All they hear is this anger, and therefore they translate the anger into a supposed fact that you hate God. And I don't think you hate God. I think you just don't know.
No, I hate what people have made of God. I hate what people have made of God. As an example,
so do I.
Suggesting to someone that God will take care of some itsy-bitsy, teeny little problem in your life while the rest of the world goes to hell in a handbasket. That angers me.
I don't think I suggested that. I think I suggested that God will help you through more serious problems to be a better person, yes. And I think I suggested God will give you courage and hope.
If I lost my job tomorrow, would God help me through that crisis?
If you did what?
If I lost my job tomorrow and the bills started to pile up, would God help me through that
God's
crisis?
not going to pay your bills.
I didn't say that he would. Would he help me through that crisis? Would he help me find the strength?
Yes, he would. He would help you.
But he couldn't help any of the 12 million Jews.
He would help you to have the strength and courage to deal with that crisis. Yes, he would.
But he's not in the least bit interested in relieving any of my personal suffering.
He is interested. Well, what do you mean? Is he going to go out and be your agent to get another job? No. That's up to you.
But I should thank God when I get the job, huh?
Courage to go on, Bob.
But I should thank God when I get the job, huh?
You should thank God and share your wealth with others when you do get.
I should thank God for something. I should thank God for something which he has no control over, had no influence in whatsoever.
Well, I think you should also thank God for some. Sometimes we have to actually be in a position where we thank God for suffering. I think that my medical
We should thank God for suffering.
Yes, my medical problems, for example, have been a great source of suffering, but they've also been a great source of growth for me. So in a way, I'm in a position where I almost have to thank God for the fact that I've suffered, because it's helped me to grow.
You couldn't have grown on your own, huh, John?
Not to this extent. I would have grown more, I think, but I don't think I would have grown to this extent. Let me give you a quick example. You know, I do a lot of hospital visits, or I did as a pulpit rabbi. And I didn't understand what it was like for people to be sick. I really didn't understand. And now I understand what it is to be sick. And the types of visits I do for people in the hospital are very different. They're much more in depth. They have much more meaning to them.
Are you going to the Promised Land?
You mean Lakeland?
Are you going to the Promised Land?
What does that mean? Am I going to be rewarded in an afterlife?
Yeah.
I hope so. I don't think that we're
But I thought you told me a little bit earlier in the conversation that Jews don't believe in an afterlife.
Well, I'm kind of a strange guy. You know, I believe
whatever's convenient.
What?
Whatever's convenient.
No, whatever I think I have heard or has been part of what my prayer life has been like. My prayer life tells me of a loving God, okay? And I don't think it makes any sense to me that God would love us for 20 or 30 or 70 or even 100 years and that's the end. I think that we pass from this life to another type of life. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, guys with harps or anything. I don't know what it is.
Is God truth?
What?
Is God truth?
I think God wants the truth out.
Is
and
God self-evident?
God in that way.
Is God self-evident?
I think God is self-evident through prayer.
Well, if God is truth and if God is self-evident, what is your problem with someone such as myself who questions the entire concept?
I have no problem with you questioning God.
I mean, you think I'm better than God?
No, I have no problem.
Well, then what's your problem with my views?
My problem is that there's so much anger mixed in with some of the things that you say that people only hear the anger and they don't hear a man who really does have an open mind.
Does not ignorance anger you?
Yes.
That angers me too.
Many times on my show.
Well, ignorance angers me too.
Well, let me finish. And I think that there's a man inside of you who I've seen over the last 3 or 4 years who is mellowing out and becoming more and more open to the concept that there is something greater than him.
That's utterly absurd. That is utterly absurd, and I resent that very much.
You resent that?
Yes, I do. I think that's rather arrogant of you.
Oh, Bob.
I'm mellowing. Give me a break.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, you're not mellowing, but I think you're becoming more open to the idea that there is something greater than you, and that there is a force, power, or being that is greater than you, and that people can have contact with that force, power, or being, and be a better person for it.
Oh, on that particular last note, you are quite incorrect. I have no evidence whatsoever, nor has it ever been suggested in any fashion that I could possibly begin to accept that people have contact with higher beings. Do I suspect that there are higher beings? Of course I do. I suspect that there are higher beings. Simply because I don't believe that if life exists in the universe, that this is the pinnacle.
No, I'm not talking about spacemen now, Bob. Do you think that there is a power...
Well, why can't God be a spaceman?
Do you think...
Why can't God be a spaceman?
Bob, give me a break. Do you think that there's a power source in the universe greater than ourselves?
I have every reason to suspect there is. Mathematically, there should be.
Forget about mathematics. Do you think there is?
I have every reason to suspect that there is. I have nothing to go on in terms of hard facts. Nothing.
Now, if there is such a being, power, or force, wouldn't you like to be in communication with him?
Yes, I wish he'd get in touch with me.
Why don't you get in touch with him?
How can I get in touch with something that does not exist?
You just said it. There's a possibility exists, didn't you?
Well, wait a second. I thought this being loved me.
He does love you. He's waiting to hear from you.
Well, then why doesn't he get in touch with me?
I'm making the invitation for you. That's all I do is make the invitation for him. Why don't you try to get in touch with him?
Because I don't have any reason to suspect that he wants to hear from me.
I think he does.
Well, I don't think he does.
I
don't believe he has any direct interest in what's going on here. If he did, it wouldn't be such a disaster.
Don't lay that on him. That's up to us.
I beg your pardon. I'm not laying the responsibility for the disaster on him.
Okay.
I am simply saying if he existed, he could not tolerate. He would not put up with what we do to ourselves.
It, Bob. He has given us the wisdom to change it, damn it. He's given us the wisdom to be his partner in changing it. You ask me, does anything bother me that religious people say? The one thing that bothers me, the ones who get on say, well, the world is coming to an end, and therefore I don't really have to do very much. That's bull. We are God's partners. We're supposed to change it. We're supposed to get out there and build a $30 million home for the homeless, never mind a damn baseball stadium. That's what we're supposed to do. And the money's there, and the power's there, and everything is there except the morality and the will to do it.
That must make him real happy, huh?
No, that pisses him off. You want to know the truth.
Makes him so angry that those people who want to build that stadium, that those people who want to bring that baseball team in here are going to get filthy rich doing it, and all those poor people that you talked about that God's so pissed off about are going to continue to be poor and are going to continue to suffer. That is an absurd concept, Rabbi.
That's absurd, that God is angry and hurt. That
so angry that he's not going to help the people that he's angry about.
That God has given us the power to do all of these good things, and we screw it up, and you don't think that makes him angry?
No, I don't, Rabbi.
You think, Bob, you think, I have kids. You think that this is just going to continue like this, and nothing's going to change, and our society's not going to disintegrate? Forget it. You see the Mad Max movies? That's what it's going to look like for my kids if this continues.
Yeah, well, Rabbi, I'm sitting here talking about society disintegrating, and one of the reasons I see society disintegrating is because of religion.
Because of certain people who have abused his name, and they are now paying the price, aren't they? All of a sudden, we're finding out some truths about those people, aren't we?
Gee, I suppose the guy that gets wealthy, or the woman that gets wealthy, or the person that gets a great job when that baseball team comes here shouldn't be thankful to God. Comes here shouldn't be thankful to God for it, huh?
No, they shouldn't.
No, they shouldn't.
They should be.
But if I got a job in New York at 3 times the salary, I should be thankful for that.
No, yeah, that would be a miracle. Sorry, Bob. I'm sorry. I was too good. Bob, the social responsibility that we have actually wouldn't be a miracle. You're pretty good. The social responsibility we have to change this world as God's partners, we have screwed up. And that's where you and I agree. And the people who are the charlatans who come on and say the most important thing is for you to send me money so I can get everybody to believe the way I do, that's nonsense. The most important thing one derives from God is to come back into reality and say, hey, I've just been praying and this is not the way it's supposed to be.
Do you need people to send you money so that you can convince everybody to think the way that you do?
I need to survive, and you know I'm having a lot of problems with that.
But you need people to send you money so that you can convince the world to think the way that you do.
Everybody else, yes. Just like you do. I need money to live.
Well, you see, that's where I get so confused. I mean, you seem like a nice guy. Jim and Tammy seemed like nice people. So I think rather...
Don't you ever put me in the same
I think rather than possibly be wrong and send it to the wrong nice guy, I'll keep my money and I'll also keep my own sense about me and make my own decisions.
Don't put me in the same breath with those people. Don't you ever do that on the airways, put me in the same breath with those people.
Well, you both do the same thing.
No,
I just don't know which one of you are really sincere.
Don't you ever say that. That is disgusting.
Well, funny they tell me they want to bring people to God. You tell me you want to bring people to God.
I don't build theme parks and I don't build water slides. I try to get people to live a deeper, more spiritual life, to find God in their own way, and to live an ethical life by
helping others. Can't you find God on a water slide? Can't you find God on a water slide?
Maybe so, but apparently Jerry Falwell did one time, but not me. That's not what I'm about, and you know that's not what I'm trying to do. You know that.
I didn't suggest that you were trying to build a water slide. I just said I'm confused, so I'll keep my own senses about me, and I'll make my own decisions. And I'll take credit for my own accomplishments, and I will accept blame for my own failures and weaknesses. And I won't try to pawn them off on a God, either one, my accomplishments or my weaknesses and failures. I will accept responsibility for both.
There's nothing wrong with that. And there may even come a time in your life...
That's all I've ever asked people to do.
There may come a time in your life when you can't do it alone, when you need a little help. And the help is there.
There have been many times in my life when I felt I couldn't do it alone, but there was something that came along that helped me. It's called time. Time to work out my own problems.
And your spirit will help you too. If you want, that's your choice.
Thank you, Jan.
Bob, take care.